All right, so welcome to another Brainworks Education lecture video for civic education. So today, I believe this is topic 5. So we are actually approaching our goal of doing at least 12 topics before we actually start doing past paper revisions for your exams, especially those guys doing GCE. Then afterwards, I'm going to continue until we actually finish all 148 pages. So at least those who are writing like later on this year, you're going to be lucky because you're going to have a series of videos. So today's topic is rather interesting. It's actually a little bit controversial because corruption again falls under morality, and it also falls under ethics. Is it morally acceptable to accept a bribe when you're in a situation of authority, when you're in a situation where you have an advantage and other people are maybe on a waiting list and they actually want to maybe climb the ladder, even, pass through maybe a long queue. They want the services to be delivered right there and then. They want their children to be admitted to the best possible learning institutions right there and then. And you have that power within you. Are you going to act in a manner that exhumes integrity? Or is your social and economic status, the lifestyle that you want to live, will it lead you to actually taking that bribe? So this is a very interesting topic when we talk about ethics. So there are certain terms that I want you to understand first. So the first term that I want you to understand is what's a bribe. So a bribe is dishonestly, it's trying to persuade. So dishonestly, trying to persuade someone to act in one's favor by a gift of money or other inducement. It might not be money. Then bribery itself, bribery refers to the offering or giving or soliciting. These words can be used interchangeably, or receiving of any item of value as a means of influencing the actions of an individual holding a public or legal duty. So the manner of integrity comes in because it usually deals with people who have influence of an individual. So you are holding a public office or maybe a legal duty. So now that you know what a bribe is and you know what corruption is, let's focus on, what a bribe is and bribery is. Let's focus on the actual definition of corruption as given to you by your civic education textbook. So corruption is defined as giving money, valuable or rendering of a service. Remember, it's not only money, to someone in return of a favor involving the abuse of public office and resources for personal gain. Is it ethical? Is it not ethical? That topic is subject to debate and it's subjective. So there are different types of forms of corruption, and these usually involve human rights violation and a lack of transparency and accountability. Remember, citizenship, good governance, constitution, transparency, and accountability are among the key features of good governance. And usually when human rights are violated, these are forms of, bad citizenship and also bad governance. So that's why we try by all means to avoid corruption. So again, in the use of public authority and resources. So here's some of the forms of corruption. So the first type of, the following are some forms of corruption. So remember, it's not only cash. So the first one, cash payment and receipt. Cash payment and receipt. So you get cash and you receive cash. You pay cash, the person receives cash. Cash payment and receipt is the most common form of corruption. This involves giving or accepting money in return of a favor by a public officer. Give and receipt. So kick back. So it doesn't involve money, but it involves rendering of a service in return of a favor by a public officer. So maybe you've been caught over speeding, and maybe you find a police officer, and the police officer recognizes this vehicle that, okay, you are the head teacher of a certain public school. And the officer says, all right, so in exchange for this, I'm going to let you go, and you're going to give my child maybe a position in grade 9, let's say, or in grade 10. Even if the child hasn't cleared grade 9, they'll be like, okay, you've been grade 10, and this is going to happen this way. So it's sort of a kickback. So payment in kind, again, is where one demands for a favor for an action done. So like this payment in kind, I might say it's an example of an I owe you. So if someone helps you, then you say, all right, I owe you. So payment in kind. So loans and advances. Loans and advances so involve corrupt payment in form of a loan or an advance. Such action is characterized by a misuse of public office for personal gain. So loans and advances that are not done ethically. So commissions, these are given as an appreciation fee for awarding a contract. So in terms of human resource management, commissions are actually a part and parcel of motivational theory. But if certain commissions are, they have to be rewarded for hard work and achievement. But if let's say you've maybe helped someone pass through a line, and you give them a little bit of something, that's actually also a form of corruption, even if it's unintended. So those are the forms of corruption. What about the categories of corruption? And again, these categories of corruption can be monetary. So it's a little bit involving cash, but remember corruption, because the definitions here are going to involve some form of payments and cash, but I want you to understand that corruption goes beyond cash, as you've seen from the from the forms of corruption. So petty corruption, the word petty means small, not in an abundance. This is widely practiced in Zambia, for it involves small amounts of money, of payments. These small amounts of money, I feel like petty corruption is actually more dangerous because it can actually hide from both internal and external auditors. These are things that you cannot easily account for within an organization or a company. So it's actually easier to get away with such petty corruptions. These payments are called bribes. A bribe is an offer or money of any other, an offer of money or any other gifts or offered to obtain a favor, like we've discussed. So grand corruption, anything that's grand involves in something that's, big and extravagant. So a grand corruption, this involves substantial or huge amounts of money, and is usually practiced by high-ranking officials. So you are not, for you to carry out a grand corruption scheme, you really have to be somebody in life. Such corruption is associated usually with payments for favors in government contracts, public appointments, or privatization for government-owned companies or assets. Even these ongoing recruitments, you find recruitment of health workers, recruitment of teachers. There are people who have the power to actually, they are part and parcel of the selection criteria. And if you give them some form of monetary cash, you might become a civil servant and your life might be made easier. No wonder I said there is a fine line between ethics and corruption based on your moral principles, especially when we're living in a highly populated, highly competitive, high-paced city like Lusaka. So political corruption is something that we've witnessed in many elections. This kind of corruption is associated with the electoral process. It is usually practiced by those contesting for political power. The following, so we have some examples like donations of money to influence voters' votes, cash, the whole regalia movements, even provision of services such as electricity, water supply, road maintenance, sponsorships. Before you know it, just because we're a few months to elections, you start seeing roads and mass developments in the country happening. It's political corruption. They're trying to hypnotize you and influence your vote. So at least now that you're learning civic education, you're going to have a basis, you'll be a more aware and informed citizen, and you'll be able to actually elect the right officials into power. So what are some of the causes of corruption? So these causes of corruption usually involve, social and economic problems. So they are grouped into two main categories, like I said. So the social causes, this is at a personal level, so personal greed and dishonest. Leaders in key positions are not capable of inspiring and influencing conduct of the highest moral standards. Weak enforcement or absence of code of conduct, punishment of offenders is weak. Large numbers of people compete for insufficient services. For example, school places. So this is more on a social level. We want good access to education. We want better healthcare. And like I said, we live in a very populated world, and a lot of people can actually make your life better if you probably give them one or two things. They can make your social life a whole lot better because of the position of power they're subject to. And even those people in power, their ethics and form of integrity gets shaken, because you may see it as you're trying to help someone, but as much as you're helping someone, they're giving you some form of money or you're accepting money from them. It's a huge balance. So these are some of the social causes. So economic causes. Economics, money, finances, shortages of food and services, and equal distribution of wealth and resources, allocation of government loans, in giving of tenders to some preferred individuals at the exclusion of others, low salaries and wages in comparison to the cost of living, poverty, high levels of inflation, increasing dollar prices, increasing bus fares, increasing mini meal prices, all these socioeconomic forms who question someone's integrity in public office. I would get this 500 kwacha and I would go home. I would get 500 kwacha, go to Zambia, get a few groceries, maybe in ShopRite, and my family will be fed. Or I'll have ethics and integrity and I'll do things the right way. But yet again, accepting such situations can actually cost you a whole career. So it's really these social and economic causes that leads to people accepting bribes. And it also makes it easier for you to bribe someone because you know people are not doing well financially, I tell you that. So other causes of corruption and related crimes. So of course, all these other causes of corruption, they can also be categorized in the social and economic forms of corruption. So unnecessarily long procedures, red tape, go to the district health office, apply, go to the commissioner, certify your documents, have 2 copies, buy this, buy that. This is called red tape. So some procedures that officers are expected to follow in workplaces may be just too long. The officers may take advantage of such delays to demand kickbacks for fast actions. I'll do you a favor, and your driver's license is going to come out tomorrow. Your passport is going to come out within 8 hours. Just give me something and I'll fast forward the process. Because of unnecessarily long procedures, red tape is actually a consequence of bureaucracy. So bureaucracy is there to give society a hierarchical standards, but red tape is one of the effects of bureaucracy, or living in a bureaucratic nation, which we cannot avoid. So sometimes you have to have will. So sometimes people lack political will. Some governments lack political will to deal with corruption firmly. It's all talk. No, we're going to handle corruption, we'll do this, but there's no that, political will. Lack of transparency and accountability literally just translates to bad governance. So if the government lacks checks and balances, there is a mismanagement and misuse of public funds, because, the judiciary and the legislature, all those wings of the government they have to check on each other, because you run a country, the country has economics. And as such, where there is an economy, citizens have the right to know what's happening within the country. So if you lack transparency, these are socio-economic causes of corruption. Abuse of power. When there is too much concentration of power in the hands of an individual, he or she may hinder proper investigation of corrupt practices. I'm the one who holds the authority to all procedures, even micro procedures, like issuing out some form of a receipt. It has to pass through the manager's office. If someone has such kind of power, it will be easy for you to audit them. So it will be easy for them to carry on their corrupt practices. Public reaction. How the public views corruption plays a vital role in fighting corruption. Like I said, this is very subjective and it's subject to debate. You can even question your moral compass because of the social and political status that you are at. So lack of press freedom. The media plays a vital role in exposing cases of corruption. We are now just hoping that in this new dawn government we'll see companies like ZNBC and other private local networks to have freedom of press. So that's what we are actually hoping for. So corruption is a bad practice. So we have to look at some of the effects of corruption and the impact that corruption has nationwide. So effects of corruption. It makes those involved in it become rich at the expense of other citizens. People have become millionaires because of corruption, because of embezzlement. Enables those who pay bribes to benefit in areas which, without being corruption, there would be not. You will find someone with more capable parents to pay their university fee, having 100% bursary and complaining that no, it's not again early this month, when you're already receiving financial aid from your parents who are way more than capable of paying your school fees. But because you know someone maybe at social welfare or bursary department, you find a minister's son is on 100% bursary. So this is one of the bad causes of corruption. It's not standards. You know, a society has to have a reference standard. Like, for example, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights being a standard for how countries under the UN should uphold human rights. So it distorts such standards, you know, because it enables the less deserving to reach goals ahead of those with greater merits. Interferes with the enforcement of the law and the respect of the rule of law. Like the example that we gave, that person who has a lot of power and it's hard to audit them, it means they can evade certain laws, so they can actually be above the rule of law. The rule of law is very questionable in all states, all countries, all societies. Perpetuates human suffering, or it makes human suffering happen more often. So perpetuates human suffering through increasing poverty levels of poor citizens, because the opportunity that a less privileged person may have lost out because it was granted to someone who accelerated the process. So that person won't have their education sorted out, they won't have a job, and they won't be able to contribute to their families' standards of living. Therefore, the cycle of poverty and suffering continues. So corruption has brought negative impacts in many areas in Zambia, and these include, so let's now go back to Zambia, you know, law enforcement agencies. Law enforcement agencies, you know, the police have a duty to maintain law and order. Hence, when they fail because of corruption, citizens may take the law into their own hands. So even the police system is corrupt, the health system is corrupt, the judicial systems. When judicial court officials are corrupt, justice cannot prevail, for case records disappear, trials are delayed, and the verdict passed may depend on the amount of bribes given, not evidence given. So this actually disturbs something that lawyers call the chain of custody. Even if you have a proper chain of custody, evidence has been presented well, but because someone knows the judge, no, the judge is my friend, Daniel Katenpin, you know, court hearings can be delayed even up to years. So the electoral process is also highly affected. Political parties may engage in malpractices during election period, such as giving money and materials to win support, of which some candidates win elections undeservingly from these malpractices. But again, there's a thin line between campaigning and unlawful election campaigns. Security of the nation. When corruption takes place in government office, like the National Registration Office, Passport Office, Immigration Office, like I said, I mentioned all these examples, and other ill-intended people may easily enter the country, hence putting the country's security in danger. You find that someone is migrated from another country, let's say hypothetically, let's say Nigeria. They are running from a crime, they have come in with huge sums of money, and they just go to the marriage badge and say, here is a 20 pin. Boom. They become a Zambian citizen just like that, and deserving people. The economy is affected. So corruption has brought about money laundering activities, tax evasion, and other social economic crimes which deprives the revenue of the country. Even just an act where, yeah, someone's salary is maybe 10,000 kwacha, but people are reporting that no, the pay of this individual is actually, 2,500 kwacha just to evade taxes. So is the country going to profit from such corrupt systems? No, definitely not. The education system. Sometimes bribes are paid to secure places in school, colleges, and universities. I've seen this firsthand myself. Instead of being admitted on merit grounds, the lower the education standards are, this lowers the education standards as failures are admitted, thus slowing development. So imagine being treated by a nurse or a doctor who got to the status where they are through corrupt practices. So administration of land matters. Some people pay the council and Ministry of Land officials bribes to get land illegally. We've seen this in the news, houses being demolished. This leads to unfair distribution of land and unplanned and prohibited settlements in most urban areas of Zambia. We've seen this happen, brainwork students. So procurement of goods and services. Procurement means, properly planning budgets on how you're supposed to make a transparent system to actually acquire goods and services. So purchasing of goods and services has been accompanied by corruption. To win a contract, sometimes the tender producers are not followed. They're usually not followed. Thus, potential suppliers are disqualified by buyers who may receive bribes. We see this a lot in terms of huge construction companies. You find that more qualified construction companies are not hired to properly construct government institution and proper roads, and you just get maybe a Chinese contractor who's giving you, substandard products. Not that Chinese products are bad, but it's just a theoretical example, not trying to be too political here. So you've seen the effects of corruption, the impact that corruption has in a society like Zambia. Because we have got all these negative effects of corruption, we haven't even mentioned one positive effect of corruption. We need certain organizations that will come through to actually help fight corruption. The first one, the Anti-Corruption Commission, one of the oldest organizations in Zambia. And you know the slogan, promote integrity, say no to corruption, which enriches, you have to know these organizations, by the way, which enriches the general fight against corruption. They urge everyone to join the fight by reporting any corrupt practices seen to the commission, even in this health and teachers recruitment exercise. This is an official government institution that was established through Corruption Practices Act number 14 of 1980 and started operating in 1982. In 1996, it was placed by the Anti-Corruption Act, replaced by the Anti-Corruption Act number 42 of 1996, which came on the 17th March 1997. So some of these dates, you have to know them. Anti-Corruption Commission is an autonomous corporate body, meaning it acts on its own will, autonomous, meaning its duties should not be subject to the direction or control of any authority or person. It's autonomous, it makes its own rules, sets its own standards. Thus, the anti-corruption commission, the commission, right? Sometimes I forget these things when you're flooded with this whole stream of information. So the Anti-Corruption Commission does not report to the president, it's autonomous, but to the commission's board, which comprises of 5 members who direct the work of the commission to fight corruption. And these are some of the methods that it uses. But who watches? There is this philosophical question one can ask of who watches the watchers. So who watches the Anti-Corruption Commission? You never know. So this is how it acts. Prevention is better than cure. Prevention, by undertaking necessary and effective measures to prevent corruption in public and private sectors, it also ensures that work, methods, or procedures prone to corruption are revised. To do this, there is the Commission's Prevention Department, which conducts managerial accountability workshops in both public and private sectors to set standards for accountability within institutions. So mass education efforts. This, the Anti-Corruption Commission can actually, I can say it's synonymous with most public health institutions like ZNPHI that wants to foster an attitude, an ethos of prevention through various educational campaigns. So community education, that's what I was saying here. Well, those workshops involve education. So through the Commission's Community Relations Department, the community is educated on matters relating to corruption, such as the dangers and effects of corruption. So you educate to prevent. The department uses the radio and television programs. So they want a social and behavioral change, public lectures, workshops, production and distribution of pamphlets, newsletters. These are the new things that happen even through email, posters, t-shirts, flyers, and booklets, and spearheading the formation of the anti-corruption clubs in schools in various institutions in Zambia. Auditing, investigations and prosecutions. You have to investigate, you have to scare people so that people should be afraid to violate the power that they have been given in public and in public offices. These are involved in investigating complaints of suspected corrupt practices, and if evidence is found, court prosecution. So that's the SEC. So another organization that has been in existence for a while, although these buildings should be located in better places than other than town. It's hard to reach them if they are located in town. Okay, anyway, that's just my opinion. So the Zambian National Procurement Authority, that was called Zambia National Tender Board, 1983. Remember procurement, where there's procurement, the country is a business. People have to know there should be accountability, there should be transparency. So the major reason it was formed was to control the procurement and to regulate the goods and services by government ministries, departments, and parastatal organizations. It fights corruption by ensuring that the procedure in the procurement system is done in a transparent and accountable manner, as I've explained. Parliament. You elect these officials, therefore they have to uphold high moral values, high integrity values to help fight corruption. The major role is to make laws. Parliament also provides checks and balances. The judiciary and the executive, for example, the Public Accounts Committee scrutinizes the Auditor General's report on misuse, misapplication, and embezzlement of public funds. It also refuses to sign appointments and promotions of corrupt public officials, including those in the judiciary. So that's how Parliament acts to help fight corruption. So SEC, Parliament, Zambian National Procurement Authority, and now we have the Auditor General's Office. It is provided for, again, under Article 121 of the Zambian Constitution, things you have to know. Its major responsibility is to ensure that public funds allocated by the Parliament are used for their intended purposes. It also audits accounts relating to the general revenue of the country and the expenditure of money appointed by Parliament. And if there is any irregularities, it will investigate. It further audits the judiciary, accounts relating to stocks and stores of government, and accounts of state-owned enterprises and corporations, like, things like ZESCO. The Auditor General prepares and submits audit reports of the government, accounts for each financial year to the President, who in turn represents them in the National Assembly. Very powerful office. The reports are scrutinized by the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee before they are debated in Parliament. It further submits its reports for debate and adoption by the whole House. This way, the AGO fights corruption by exposing corrupt practices. This is a very, very powerful organization, the Auditor General's Office. So Auditor General Office, these guys do a lot of accounting, big data-driven number company. So because these guys do a lot of numbers to check people's accounts, they need backup. So Investigator General's Office. The other name for the Investigator General is the Ombudsman. Ombudsman. This is the chairperson for the Commission for Investigations, which play a vital role in protecting human rights. Any person in the country is free to write to the Investigator General complaining about any violation of his or her rights if you are wrongly arrested by the police. Ombudsman. The Investigator General's Office carries out investigations on a wide variety of complaints, which include corruption cases. After investigations are completed, the Investigator General advises the police or the courts to take action. Anti-money laundering units. The economy is hard, so you can just make fake money at the end of the day. So this is the Department of the Drug Enforcement Commission. It was established in 2001 by an act of Parliament to monitor and investigate money laundering activities in Zambia, because people are woke. Money laundering is an act of concealing, disguising, processing, receiving, disposing of, bringing into the country any property which includes money on any item derived or realized directly or indirectly from illegal or criminal activities. The Act provides for disclosure of information of the suspected personnel involved in money laundering activities. The Act also provides for international cooperation into investigations, prosecutions, and other related legal processes concerning prohibition and prevention of money laundering services. So the police, are they corrupt? Are they not corrupt? I would say they're about 90% not corrupt, but the other 10% is subjective based on, again, integrity, moral issues, and social and economic issues. This service is charged with a very important role in the fight against corruption. Within this establishment, the police Professional Standard Unit has a duty to deal with police abuse and corruption practices in the system. They investigate and arrest suspected corrupt officers. The police also investigates and arrests suspected corrupt personnel. So there are also certain civil society organizations involved in the fight against corruption. So why civil societies? So this promotes integrity, transparency, and good moral behavior in public or private institutions. And these are some of the examples of civil society movements, some being formed. So Foundation for Democratic Process was established in 1991 with a view to promoting democracy in Zambia through programs of civic education and promotion of human rights and election monitoring, remember prevention. It also focuses on anti-election corruption activities under its community activity programs. So these are well-funded organizations. It provides awareness programs by educating the public about corruption in the electoral process and need for electoral reforms to enhance democracy and free election. Transparency International, Zambia, TIZ. The goal is to contribute to the reduction of corruption through the following. So this is what Transparency International Zambia does. So it's more or less the same thing. Creating interest among stakeholders and encouraging them to appreciate the concept of collective responsibility. So stakeholders, I can even say even citizens are stakeholders. Anyone that has a part in a company, an organization, a state is a stakeholder. Undertaking research on various aspects of corruption, good governance, and integrity. So where there is good research, research aims to establish a cause through the scientific method. So you ask questions, what are the problems? You collect data, you find solution, you publish. And through that research, you can actually make certain solutions that are going to have a positive impact on the society that we currently live in. Advocating and lobbying for zero tolerance towards corruption in the society. Another organization is the National Movement Against Corruption. This is a non-partisan organization involved in the fight against corruption. Research what non-partisan means. I keep spoon-feeding you certain things. You have to research. The movement was officially launched. Like I said, these are certain new organizations in March 2002. And its motto is working together for a corrupt-free Zambia. So the National Movement Against Corruption is a loose alliance or a coalition of civil society and the government, government institutions in particular. So Integrity Foundation Zambia, in collaboration with the Anti-Corruption Commission and the Government Development Unit of the Ministry of Legal Affairs. So all these organizations made a coalition, so they joined forces to form one body called the National Movement Against Corruption. So the National Movement Against Corruption demands high levels of integrity, transparency, accountability, and seeks genuine participation in the affairs of Zambia. The media, guys, the media is a huge organization. It has a vital role to play in promoting good governance and reduction of corruption. The print media, television, radio, and the internet informs the public about important things we need to know in order to function effectively within our societies. The role of the media is to dig deeper and carry out research on any cases of corruption. For example, there's this South African television powerful journalism called carte blanche journalism, where journalists even put themselves in danger. They can even disguise themselves as maybe nuns to infiltrate a certain organization that's maybe mistreating people, that's practicing corruption. So, investigative journalism, the media is a very powerful source. Oh, yeah, there we go. This is called investigative journalism. For the investigate and expose corrupt practices. By doing so, the media discourages people engaging in corrupt practices. So, role of individuals and groups in the fight against corruption. Like, what can you do? So, individuals and groups can participate in the fight against corruption by changing the attitudes from tolerance to total rejection of corruption. Very hard to do, but we are getting there. Assessing information or procedures of how to deal with corruption cases. Reporting corrupt officials to institutions concerned, such as the Zambian Police Service and these two organizations that we described, the Corruption Commission and TIZ. Supporting organizations that are fighting corruption, give them some form of support, even some form of donations. Demanding integrity and high sense of morality for public office bearers. So you demand integrity. Encouraging and supporting free press, free the media, let journalists do their job, taking responsibility for one's action. So I know this has been a slightly longer video, but we have to move. We have to cover up those 12 topics so that we can now just focus on past paper revision so that you'll be fully equipped to handle questions in the exam. So this has been Brainworks Education, topic 5, civic education. I will see you in the next video on culture. Thank you for the support. Thanks for watching. Bye. Study hard.